Hi and welcome back to Grade Guide. This revision video on evolution is directed towards students completing the Junior Cycle Science exam as part of the Irish curriculum. Based off the NCCA learning outcomes, 3 points we'll be revising in this video are what the term biodiversity means and what's meant by the word evolution, before outlining Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection and how it explains the way evolution can take place. The world is full of different kinds of life, with so many varying species of animals, plants, fungi and bacteria that make up our natural world. Even when you travel from place to place around the globe or continent to continent, you're likely to see many different kinds of plants or animals that you don't see at home. This makes us appreciate how creative and diverse life is here on Earth, and we call this biodiversity. We can see that biodiversity represents how all living things on Earth are different from each other. But even if we look at members of the same type of organism, such as dogs for example, we can see how even though they're members of the same species, there's still differences or variation between them. Some dogs are larger, smaller, have different colours of fur, have different body shapes. In the photo you can see all sorts of variation amongst the dog species. And this brings us on to what the term species means. A species refers to a group of organisms which can reproduce together to create fertile offspring. In other words, if two living things can reproduce, and then if their offspring can also reproduce, they're all considered to be members of the same species. Let's put this into context. Humans, even from different races, can reproduce, and their offspring can also reproduce. This means all of these humans are members of the same species. If a horse, on the other hand, reproduces with a donkey, their offspring is known as a mule or hinny. But the mule or hinny don't have the ability to reproduce. They're both infertile. So due to this, horses and donkeys are both classified as different species, because although they can reproduce together, the offspring they create can't. They're not fertile. So we've clarified that life on Earth is extremely diverse. But what could have caused the creation of so many different types of living things? The answer to that is evolution. Evolution is the gradual change in a species' genetics over millions of years. It can cause some inherited traits to become more common or less common in a species over many generations, or even create a completely new species. The theory of evolution was first brought forward in 1859 by a man named Charles Darwin. Darwin based his theory of evolution off a concept called natural selection. Before outlining the concept of natural selection, we need to look over what the word mutation means. A mutation is a change in a gene. Mutations may be good or bad for a species. For example, a mutation of a gene that makes an organism faster will make it more likely to catch prey for food or defeat its rivals in competition. So this mutation is beneficial to the species. Other mutations might cause disorders like cancer, which obviously would be a bad mutation. For Darwin to formulate his idea of natural selection, he observed during his studies that many species have a large number of offspring, which can cause many variations to arise due to mutations. Take this mouse for example. It produced 4 baby mice of the same brown colour, but a mutation in the genes of the other 4 baby mice caused 2 to have white fur and another 2 to have black fur. Darwin noticed that some of these mutations allowed the individual to adapt better to their environment, so they were beneficial traits. Other mutations were less beneficial and hindered organisms from adapting to their environment. Going back to the mice, the white coat mutation wasn't beneficial because they could easily be seen by any cats that came hunting in the area and were eaten. The darker coat mutation proved more beneficial for survival because they were more difficult for a cat to spot, so none of them were eaten. When an organism is more adapted to its environment and survives when another is less adapted and dies out, we call this survival of the fittest. The organisms with the best genetics will survive to reproduce and pass on their beneficial genetics to the next generation. Over time and many generations, it can become the most common trait in a species, or even create a new species altogether. The darker coloured mouse lives on to pass on its genetics, and over time many more mice will have a darker colour, and a white coloured coat will become increasingly rare or even go extinct. Over time, natural selection can lead to evolution and the creation of a new species. Evolution is the generally accepted theory for why our world is so diverse with many different forms of life. So that's it for this video on evolution. Make sure you're revised over each of these 3 points in preparation for your exams, and to make sure you're familiar with each of these keywords you can see on screen now. Thanks for watching this grade guide video. If you found the video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Best of luck with your revision.